Um, Good evening, Virgo. So, uh, restlessness in the space between you and someone you've pulled back from. And it's not the kind that settles with time, it's building, growing heavier, almost like the air before lightning strikes, charged and humming with something about to break. And if you've been sensing that this distance you've created isn't sitting well with this person, you might be picking up on a pressure that's reaching its limit. It may feel as though they're approaching a threshold they can no longer avoid crossing. This isn't about gradual change. This isn't them slowly working up courage or carefully planning their approach. This feels abrupt, urgent, like something inside them has shifted so dramatically that staying still is no longer an option. And you might already be sensing this as an electricity in the air around them, a tension that suggests movement is imminent, even if you can't see exactly what form it will take. Some of you might notice this as a change in their energy toward you, a sudden intensity where there was resignation, a focus where there was acceptance, almost like they've made a decision that's propelling them forward in ways that feel out of character or unexpected. There is a sense that your distance has created something in them they didn't anticipate. When you stepped back, when you created space, when you stopped being available in the ways you once were, it may have forced them to confront what your presence actually meant. And that confrontation, that sudden clarity about what they're missing, it can drive people to act in ways they wouldn't normally act. Um, Sometimes withdrawal creates more impact than pursuit ever could. And it's possible they're feeling that impact now in ways that are making them reconsider their own stillness, their own hesitation, their own reasons for not reaching out or showing up or being direct about what they want. This reflection invites you to consider, what do you sense about this person's current state? And does it feel more like desperation or genuine shift? It's possible this action will come through direct contact, a message that arrives without warning, a call you weren't expecting, a physical appearance in a space where you didn't think you'd see them, and the directness of it, the lack of preamble or gentle approach, it might catch you completely off guard. Because when someone acts from urgency rather than strategy, there's a rawness to it that can feel both authentic and overwhelming. But there's also the possibility that this action shows up indirectly through mutual connections, through changes they make that are clearly meant to get your attention, through decisions that signal they're no longer content to sit in the distance you've created. And those indirect moves, they can feel just as powerful as direct ones. Sometimes more so because they suggest someone is willing to restructure their entire life just to shift the dynamic between you. There's something about timing here that feels significant. Not because this moment was destined or predetermined is less than hash zero, 5 hashes greater than, but because their internal pressure has been building in a way that can't be sustained much longer. And your distance, rather than creating acceptance, may have created urgency. The realization that waiting, hoping you'll eventually come back around on your own, it's not working. And that if they want something different, they're going to have to be the one to create it. It can seem as if they've been watching the gap between you widen, and suddenly realize that if they don't act now, it might become uncrossable. And that fear, that recognition of a closing window, it can catalyze movement that's been frozen for months. Some of you might feel conflicted about this. Part of you might be curious about what they'll do, what they'll say, how they'll try to bridge the distance you deliberately created. But another part might feel protective, wary, uncertain whether you want to engage with whatever energy they're bringing. Because sudden action from someone you've stepped away from, it can disrupt the peace you've built in their absence. And you're allowed to feel both things at once: interested and guarded, open and boundaried, willing to see what happens while also knowing you don't owe them your immediate response or validation. This reflection invites you to consider, if this person does take sudden action toward you, what would you need to feel before you'd be willing to engage? There's also something here about what drives sudden action. And it's not always growth or genuine change. Sometimes it's panic, fear of loss, recognition that the dynamic has shifted in ways that no longer favor them. And while those can be powerful motivators, they don't necessarily mean the person has done the internal work that would make reconnection sustainable or healthy. So if this action arrives, you'll need to discern what's underneath it, whether it's coming from a place of authentic transformation or from discomfort with the consequences of their own choices. Whether they're reaching for you because they've genuinely evolved or because they can't tolerate you not being available to them anymore. It may feel as though you're about to be tested, not in a malicious way, but in a way that requires you to be clear about what you actually want. Because when someone makes a bold move after you've created distance, it can stir up old feelings, old patterns, old versions of yourself that were more accommodating, more willing to meet someone halfway, even when halfway meant compromising your own needs. And the question becomes, are you still that version of yourself? Or have you changed in ways that mean their sudden action, no matter how dramatic, doesn't automatically earn them access back into your life? There's a power in being the one who stepped back, in being the one who chose distance when staying felt like losing yourself. And that power, that clarity you gained through withdrawal, it's yours to keep. Their action, whatever form it takes, doesn't erase the reasons you created space in the first place. It doesn't automatically undo the patterns that made distance necessary. So, if they show up suddenly, if they make their move, you get to decide what that means. You get to decide whether their urgency is compelling enough to reconsider your boundaries. You get to decide whether what they're offering now is different enough from what made you pull away to begin with. This reflection invites you to consider, what would this person need to demonstrate through their actions, not just their words, for you to believe something has truly changed? Some of you might also feel a sense of validation in this, the understanding that your distance created impact, that your absence was felt, that you weren't as easy to forget or replace as you might have feared. And that validation, that confirmation of your significance, it can feel good. But be careful not to let it be the only thing that matters, because someone recognizing your value after you've withdrawn isn't the same as them being capable of honoring it if you let them back in. So, as this unfolds, as you sense or witness whatever action this person is about to take, stay rooted in yourself, in what you know to be true about why you created distance, in what you need moving forward, in what actually serves your peace and growth rather than just your ego or your old attachment. Their sudden move is their choice. How you respond, whether you respond, what space you're willing to make for it. All of that is yours. Stay clear, stay grounded, and trust that you'll know what's right when the moment arrives. This reflection invites you to consider if you could respond to their action from your highest self rather than your wounded or hopeful self, what would that response look like?